Welcome campers, welcome back to Camp Guys. यति वर्ष आर्मीलाई सर्भ गरिसकेपछि why you are in Nepal?
Modi is not a big fan of NGOs.
Rimari, have you killed anybody?
If you get kidnapped, you are going to get raped.
Dubai has a tremendous amount of trafficking.
It's the hub, and it's slavery.
Welcome campers, welcome back to Camp Guys, and this is the first ever podcast we are shooting with you guys because तपाईहरुको स्टोरी एकदम राम्रो छ जुन हामीले यतिकै गफमा सुन्दाखेरि and also in the group where you guys were texting about things that made me really curious to know you guys more. हैन? So त्यति हो, प्लिज थोरै अलिकति आफ्नो बारेमा इन्ट्रोड्युस गरिदिनुस्.
So मेरो नाम चाहिँ रिमा दास प्रधान हो. म चाहिँ नेवारनी हो, तर मेरो नेपाली त्यति राम्रो छैन.
सुजुला
देवामारु यो कि म अब कति 37 इयर्स पछि यहाँ नेपालमै फर्केर आएर यहाँ काम गर्ने भनेर आएको. बीचमा ट्रेकिङ सेकिङ आउँथ्यो, तर अब यहीँ बसेर काम गर्ने भनेर आएको.
I'm not going to speak Nepali because that'll be just horrific. No.
Just try it, bro.
मेरो नाम Frederick Shaw.
Bas, English is good.
And that's it. Yeah, it takes it. So for the past 4 years, I've been running an INGO here in Nepal, working on public health relations, teaching doctors in the hospital on emergency medicine, and teaching a lot of wilderness care, especially towards Sherpas that end up in these environments where a lot of trekkers and hikers end up with high altitude sickness, and we give them the tools to be able to treat said patients. My background is in emergency management and austere care from the military. I was with the 1st 505th and their parachute regiment. And yeah, that's kind of it.
Even though we didn't understand anything, but yeah, it was very fast English for us, you know?
Yeah, I'll slow it down. I used to jump out of airplanes and then hurt my knees. And I did it in dangerous environments. And then all while doing medicine. So now I teach a lot of people that.
What people?
A lot of people.
A lot. Halal people.
A lot of.
Yeah. My English is not really good, guys. Please.
No, you're
make fun of me, okay?
You're beautiful.
So yeah, this is the first question, हैन, जुन चाहिँ आशिष दाइले भन्नुभएको. यति वर्ष आर्मीलाई सर्भ गरिसकेपछि फेडरिक यति वर्ष आर्मीलाई सर्भ गरिसकेपछि why you are in Nepal?
So after I got out of the military, I felt really kind of lost. And I ran a very successful photography business. And I would also teach like concealed carry classes, which in the States, there's certain requirements that you need to meet to be able to carry a gun on you all the time. And part of what I did was I brought civilians who had never carried a gun and got them to the point where they were competent enough to be able to shoot better than most police officers. And so that they could protect themselves, they can protect their families. Because in the US, you can just print guns. Like it's not difficult to get an illegal weapon. I mean, it's difficult. You have to break a lot of laws to do so. But people, no, to get an illegal weapon. But people do this. And they carry, and some people live in really dangerous areas where a lot of people do that. And they want to feel that safety. And the only way to level that playing field is for them to also have a gun, but legally. So I teach them everything that they need to know, from how to de-escalate to how to react to a dangerous situation, to then how to handle if someone is shot and what medical necessities they need to understand. But that never felt like enough. Like I didn't feel like I was actually helping people. And so I retired from my business, sold my business, and started an NGO that went into specifically South Asian countries. And we did a lot of public health works. So that means really focusing on extremely low income areas. So a lot of ghettos. And we would put fresh water where we could. So specifically like biosand filters, which is just a very rudimentary, very easy way of filtering water to a safety level where it's consumable, where you can drink it. teaching people about simple like germ theory, understanding like why do we wash our hands, how do we wash them, like what's the proper way of doing it right before doing food, because a lot of people will just rinse after touching raw pork, and that doesn't get rid of the germs at all, and they're contaminating their own food and getting listeria as well as a number of other fun bacteria that makes them shit themselves and die, which is not fun. So our focus was find the simplest ways to improve health overall and go from there. After doing that in India for a while, I had some issues with local law enforcement. Yeah, I wonder why. Modi is not a big fan of NGOs. Yeah, he's not. And well, this isn't like secret, and there's nothing against it. I understand why he is. But that became a problem for me, because then police officers would interrupt a lot of our teaching and would stop us from handing out soap and blankets, clean food, clean clothes. Just simple things that we were just trying to improve people's lives became a danger to me, especially because I stand out.
Do
right?
you?
Right? I know. White guy, full beard, lots of tattoos in the middle of India giving stuff out. That's something that people take notice of.
It is crazy.
Yeah. And so I came to Nepal to kind of let things cool off in India, and I started doing the same things here. But more communities were receptive of it, which means they hid me from political persecution. So I didn't have to worry about local law enforcement ever interrupting anything. I didn't have to worry about moving from one place to another. The only time that we did have to worry is when I organized a large enough med camp to require permits. And then we would have issues with local law enforcement coming to us and asking for more money. And then we would have to be a little more low key. Because we did that up in Chainpur, and we had local law enforcement request almost like $1 lakh in extra fees from me, even though we paid all the permit fees. So, yeah.
So here we go. You're in Nepal.
Now I'm here. I met a beautiful woman who I married, and super pumped about it. So, yeah.
Rimadi, same question to you. After 37 years, what made you come to Nepal again?
Nepal has my soul. So I went to Australia when I was very young, when I was 18 to study. And I used to be in the Greenpeace activist group, people like him would have hated me. So back in 1992, I was, part of the team asking for, or, protesting about carbon emission levels that are now in the Paris Agreement. So back in 92 we started, and then finally in 2015 the International Committee agreed to levels, right? So and then somehow or the other, at age 25, I had just been in Australia for a little while. I finished my first degree, which was in science, resource and environment management, and it was all very focused on Nepal, community forestry, on ecotourism and so on, focused on the Annapurna region back then. And then I suddenly became the national coordinator of 65 national women's organizations in Australia. And we were doing all the preparations for the UN Fourth World Conference on Women in Beijing. And that's where we had the Beijing Platform for Action, which is the book which sets out the standards for women's rights and so on, right? Then after that, I went to do law. And then things started happening around Australia. So the dictator from Indonesia, Suharto, came down, and then suddenly I was in law school, and then I was asked to go and join a bunch of Australian lawyers and judges and help design a legal and judicial reform program, anti-corruption program in Indonesia. Then Timor-Leste or East Timor, they suddenly had a referendum on whether they wanted to have be independent from Indonesia or not. And suddenly I was working with the military, and I was part of one of the first civil military cooperation efforts after the UN Security Council had passed a resolution on peacekeeping, and I was one of the early waves of people who went in there to think about how do we set up a new country from scratch. Then I went to the US to study at Georgetown. And then it was Iraq, preparing for Iraq. And then I was working on Iraq. I was working with a whole lot of organizations, with the World Bank. I was part of the Iraq core team, working on anti-corruption, on decentralization, on public financial management, on rule of law, working with the Chief Justice of Iraq. I was with the U.S. State Department. Then I was in Afghanistan. So I was in and out of Iraq for 10 to 12 years. And then I was in Somalia for 10 years. And Somaliland, which is a country that's not recognized. And then I got an assignment in Nepal, in Surkhet. And I loved it. I was there for 15 months. From living in containers in war zones, being protected sometimes by U.S. Marines and lots of people who look like him, who carry guns. I was in Surkhet, living in a hotel, and I didn't have somebody following me around with guns, and I didn't have to wear bulletproof vests and wear a helmet and live in containers with sandbags. And I said, "Oh, this is nice." And so then it also felt good to be doing good things for Nepal. And my Nepali was really bad. I won't say I won't get into some of the mistakes I made in front of the chief minister and so on. But then I decided, actually, I'm done with almost 30 years of working in war zones, living out of containers, being driven around in bulletproof cars, even having protection when I was back in Denmark, which is where I lived for 15, 16 years. And I thought, why not do for my own community and for my own people. In between, I had come in 2010 to work with the International Commission of Jurists, worked with the judiciary here. 2016, I was here. And then this time I felt, right, this is the right time to come home. And this is the time where we can try and really move things along. So I'm here, and hopefully I can contribute.
Welcome to Camp Guys. Anyways, I just want to ask Fred, how did you went in army? Like, what's the story behind it?
So I was very young and I was homeless. So I didn't have a whole lot of options.
Can you also tell like how you became homeless?
Yeah. So I am the youngest of 6 biologically, and then I have one younger half brother. Things at home were not very safe for me. Not a very healthy home life whatsoever. And so to me, it was safer to just go off on my own. So I went from place to place, living at a friend's house, and then I eventually got on the Appalachian Trail and started working my way north. And I eventually ended up in Maine, which I love that state, and that's hopefully where I'll move back to soon. And I finished out my high school, just all online, just pounded it out as quickly as I possibly could, and started working on a boat. And I met an Army recruiter on that boat, and they started talking to me about options and what I could do. And I had done like a couple first aid courses and had done a little bit of like lifeguarding here and there, had started working on like my EMT, which is emergency medical technician, the baseline of entry towards the medical field inside the United States. And they came to me and they're like, hey, we have a program you have to test into, but it will allow you to help people. It'll allow you to help soldiers. And I was like, you know what, that sounds awesome. And I took the ASVAB and did very well. And the ASVAB is the entry test into the military to decide like what jobs are available to you. And I scored very, very well on it. And they were like, okay, you qualify for this program, so come on in. And so I spent 2 years in Texas learning everything I possibly could about medicine. And then after that, I went to my airborne school in SEER, which SEER is like survival, evade, rescue, and escape, which teaches you how to get out of like prison camps from enemy soldiers and stuff. And then after that, went to my first unit, and we immediately went off. And I started doing my residency overseas in Afghanistan for a while, about 18 months, and just learned everything I could about austere medicine. And so austere medicine is like a subset of emergency medicine that focuses on care under fire. So tactical combat casualty care, which is TCCC. That is my focus. And while I do not miss the circus, which is what we call the military, I do miss the clowns that I used to work with. I miss all the guys. But yeah.
And I have a lot of respect for people like good old Fred, because people like Fred used to, as I said, make sure that, you know, I was safe, and they would put their lives on the line, because I would go outside the wire, even though I might have worked and lived in the so-called green zone or the international zone. We would have to go and meet with the Chief Justice of Iraq, or, you know, I was a special advisor to the Minister for Planning, or, you know, Minister of Finance. So I would have to go to high risk to the ministry. So I'd be embedded in the governments, and ex-military or military personnel would be there protecting me. And I'd be in bulletproof cars, sometimes with two, or in tactical helicopters and the Bluebirds.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, every time we went out, we'd be told that if we come under fire, we'll jump on top of you, protect you. You're in your bulletproof car. Make sure you don't get out. But we were trained before we left on how to drive every car, pick up every gun, drive through explosions. And I mean, I'm sure you've nearly died much more times than I have, but I've had like 6 very close calls, and I'm grateful to people like this one for, you know, taking care of me.
Can you say one of the close call?
Actually, I mean, one in Afghanistan, I was going to go and meet. I was designing a legal and judicial reform program for the U.S. government, legal empowerment for women. Actually, it was. This was in 2008, and I was going to a meeting, and my ex-husband at the time, who was also in the Danish Air Force, he rang me and he said, "Have you got your kit on?" And I said, yeah, kind of. And then he said, "Well, I think you don't have all your kit on. You go right back, and I will divorce you if you don't go back right now." And so I did go back. And when I went back, the location that I was going to got hit. So that was one close call. But the even closer call was actually, I mean, I've had close calls in Iraq when I was with the Chief Justice, because I used to work a lot with him. But the closest one was in Nairobi in Kenya. And I don't know if you remember this, when there was a siege in a supermarket.
What year was this?
2013.
Oh, yes.
Westgate, yeah.
Okay.
And it used to be so I had just come out from a huge conference on Somalia in Brussels, and I'd forgotten my sports watch. So I was going to go to the mall, have my breakfast, where I always do, and go and see if I could get a replacement sports watch. And just as I was at the roundabout leading into the Westgate shopping mall, I heard gunfire. And I was like a minute or less away from being inside the mall, and it was under siege for 4 days. And it was essentially certain armies and special forces that managed to get the situation under control. But I was living in a hotel very close by, or you could hear it all around Nairobi, all the bombings and the shootings. And then later we got to see what actually happened inside, and it was awful. So it was taken over by the terrorist group of Al-Shabaab, yeah, they did very nasty things in there. So that was my closest call.
I can imagine it, but तपाईँले भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ यहीँ मरेर चाहिँ बिग मार्टमा सम्झिरहेको थिएँ अब
Yeah.
कुन स्टोर मार्केट थाहा छैन. Man, yours. Any close calls?
It's honestly hard to count.
Right.
A lot of what we do, and especially when you're just in it, you don't think about that
Right.
at all.
You just say like,
I
whatever
mean,
happens,
you
happens.
hear shots going over your head very, very quickly. These Afghani farmers they'll take pop shots at us. So pop shots are like just one-offs, two-offs, and then they'll go hide because it's very difficult to pinpoint like gunfire off of one or two shots, and especially in a mountainous region where it echoes. Like that makes it even more difficult. So like you'll have this noise just kind of come right next to you, and you're like, oh shit, that was like inches from my face. I mean, there's been times where our convoy has like hit a old IED, and so an IED is an improvised explosive device. The later years of the Afghan war, I wouldn't necessarily call them an IED. I would just call them an explosive device because they become very sophisticated at a certain point. And improvised is, you kind of have to put a little respect on it because it's a decent bomb. Like it's incredible what an individual with a third grade education can make out of a pressure cooker. Like it's enough to take out a couple trucks. And so it's hard to pinpoint one. I have one from when I was first going through, and this one always sticks with me. First kind of going through my airborne training and then later at my unit. I was at my unit at the time. My parachute cigarette rolled, which means that my lines got tangled. And what you're supposed to do is grab both sides, pull down as hard as you possibly can, and kind of like bicycle. And it helps you get untangled. But I was only 50 feet above the ground when it actually like collapsed. And I was young. I didn't think, and I didn't pull my reserve, and I just went hit the ground. Yeah, hit the ground hard. I compressed my knees, my hips, my spine, my L4 and L5 are fused, and I broke both my feet. And that was very lucky that actually happened. And I properly did a PLF, which is a platform landing fall. It's the way that you fall from great heights that kind of help push the energy out from direct impact to out your feet. And I was able to pack up my stuff. Adrenaline was super high. I walked like a quarter of a mile to the pickup point and then collapsed on the ground. And they took me to the hospital, and I went through like 6 months of physical therapy. But that one sticks with me so much because it was like, that wasn't a combat zone. This was a training exercise. Nothing should have gone wrong. It was simple. But looking back on it as someone who's now almost twice the age I was when this happened, we have guys that are like 18 packing these chutes. Like most people in the military are under the age of 20.
And they can't buy a drink.
Yeah, they can't even buy a drink, but they're just these kids, and especially parachute packers, all respect to them, they're great. But they do one job, and sometimes when you're overtired and working all the time, stakes happen. And especially when you're young. And so some young parachute rigger fucked up my parachute, and I paid the price for it. But
do they take action after this?
Yeah, there's usually an investigation, and there was, and that guy got an Article 15, which is like a basic, like, we're going to take your rank and your pay for like a year, and then you're going to get back after. Which, understandable, I didn't die, but now I'm...
luck, man.
Yeah.
If you would, dead, Kabka.
Yeah.
So, Rimadi, I heard you were in a field for a very long time.
Yes.
Like 30 years.
And in fact, I was just before this, I was talking to the owner of my building, and I was saying, every time I see a container, I get so excited. And where I live, there's containers outside. I go like, that's my home. I feel comfortable. If you put 2 more containers there, I could live there forever.
So how was that experience? Like, so just sundakere is very scary. The way you said before.
I mean, we're obviously in a protected camp, but still we have a lot of, sometimes we have infiltrations and then we have rockets. And from the time that you have the only thing, by the way, that wakes me up now because of all my experiences, I have to take medications to sleep, right? And so because we're always alert and so on, and so the only thing that wakes me up is actually the alarm for duck and cover.
Oh my god.
Duck and cover, duck and cover. That means get to the bunker, and you have like between 6 and 7 seconds to get to the bunker or to a safe space, right? And our containers are sandbagged and also has overhead protection. And there are these T-walls, which are made of concrete.
It's mostly like a mixture of rock and concrete.
And so, and there's just a narrow alleyway, and for one person to walk in, and if a rocket lands in between, it'll bounce up. So what we used to do when we used to get in for pre-information that there's going to be a lot of rocket attacks, and especially at night, you wake up and you're dazed and you can't, you're not going to have time to get to the bunker. We used to have steel beds, and we just used to sleep under the bed with all our kit on, because there's just no time. And some days we'd be like that for 2-3 days in Iraq and so on. So that was it. And and of course, when you live in such situations, there's different. Say for example, in Iraq, I was living on the American base, and there's next door was the Danish base, and then there's the UK base, and so on. And in situations like that, we can only stay there as civilians for 29 days at a time, and then we have to go out. And then in certain contracts, you actually have to go. I can't remember how frequent it was. You have to go mandatorily to a counselor because you have to debrief, and you're just so used to, rockets and hearing bombs and so on. It just becomes it becomes a way of life, right? And I mean, I used to have, particularly in Iraq, and then more so in Somalia, I'd have people like coming out from where more than 500 people would be killed, and they just go and pick up pieces of bodies, and then because it's a Muslim country, they'd go and bury them straight away, and then they'd come to work. And you just go, dude, I mean, how do you do that? And there, especially Somalia, which has been in a state of war for 3 decades.
It's been more. It's been like 50 years.
50 years. There's generations who know nothing but, and you just go, wow, we are just, it's not the right thing to say, but we are just so lucky to have what we have. And you just have nothing but admiration for these, all my colleagues and the people there who know nothing else, right? Yeah.
Like you'll have foreign nationals come on base. Like we vet people, we look at their background, then they'll come, they'll work. So we have kitchen staff, we'll have cleaners, we'll have like low-level non-clearance jobs. And even a lot of people from Nepal will come to our forward operating bases, our FOBs. And they'll be like kitchen staff, and they'll cook for the DoD civilians.
Department of Defense.
Yes, Department of Defense. For us, we have specific cooks from the military that cook for us. Or you can get a Burger King like hamburger from the container, like three down from you, which is always silly. Because that's how it was when I was there. Is they had set up a FOB that had been there for a long time, and one thing that's amazing about U.S. logistics is we can put a Burger King anywhere in the world within 48 hours.
And KFC.
And Subway.
Yeah, Subway.
No, we don't have McDonald's. We didn't have McDonald's.
No, Mickey.
Yeah, it was just Burger King, Subway, and
KFC. No.
It was like Popeyes or something.
No, there was a
right?
pizza thing.
Domino's.
Yeah.
So that's what's crazy about U.S. logistics is like logistics win wars, right? So we are able to put anything, anywhere within a 48-hour period. Anything.
And I mean, so one of the things that I am proud about, it's a sad story, but I am proud about this, was, do you remember the 12 Nepalis who got executed on the way from Jordan to Baghdad? They had been trafficked, and they thought they were going to work in Dubai. but they had been trafficked. I think they'd been exchanged hands, like, between traffickers about 5 times. And at that time, they were going to go and work for KBR, who was providing these logistic services, so life support services, so kitchen, laundry, cleaning, blah blah blah. That night, and at that time, they used to go in convoys from Jordan into the FOBs, or the camps. And that night, they knew that there was going to be an attack from the Iraqi terrorist group at the time, Al Qaeda, and they were lambs to the slaughter. And at that time, I was married to an American investigative journalist, and I told him I lost my marriage over it. I begged him to write the story, and he wrote the story. He went up to the homes of where these men came from, talked to their mothers and how they found out about how they were killed and so on. And then the story came out, and he got Pulitzer nominated and a number of human rights awards and so on. And then later on, Pulitzer is like one of the biggest awards for journalists. It's like the Oscar award or whatever. And then later he was involved he supported the case against the Department of Defense, because they were going to work as contractors for the Department of Defense. And the Defense Base Act, the U.S. Defense Base Act, the families actually managed to get some compensation. So we broke the chain of, the families having to, dalals to pay they had taken out loans. So we broke the chain of somebody else from their family having to go off and work in really difficult situations. But I one of my favorite things is when I was at the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, we had a huge. It was at that time. It was in Saddam Hussein's the former dictator palace, and we had a huge mess where we could get any type of food. And हाम्रो नेपाली भाइहरूले, दिदी हाम्रो खाने हो आज, दाल भात खाने हो, दाल भात खाने हो. And so they would sneak out their food for me, and it was कस्तो मिठो, compared to the rest of it. But मलाई कस्तो माया लाग्थ्यो. So हाम्रो नेपाली भाइहरू, बहिनीहरू, they make me proud wherever you go. Particularly Timor Lesteमा हाम्रो ब्रिटिस गोर्खाहरूले कस्तो protected entire villages क्या त्यति बेला. अनि त्यहाँ नेपाली हो भने त धेरै मान गर्छ.
Crazy लाग्दैन कहिले कहिले यसो सोच्दाखेरि.
So yeah, now that I stop and think about it, you go, how did I even start? And then so I've been away from the war zones since just after COVID. But I have to admit, this morning I was going Syria, Palestine.
that never leaves you. That's the thing.
Yeah, it's like, maybe just short-term missions, not
one more, just one more.
Yeah, and then but it becomes I don't know,
A habit.
It becomes a habit. And I mean, I think one of the most chilling things was, I was in Indonesia, and there was the first wave of journalists going in after the referendum, and after the East Timorese voted to become independent from Indonesia, the militia and the military committed genocide within a matter of weeks, and burnt down 80% of the country and massacred people and so on. And so the first wave of journalists were going in, and the night before, the night before, we were all drinking, and we're all, we were going to be the next wave. And we were saying to the guys, follow the rules, stick by the rules, listen to what you're being told. And we heard the next day that one of the guys didn't follow the rules. He got on the back of a scooter and broke away from the pack. And of course, what happened was he got scalped and killed. And
Scalped, whatever.
It means cutting off the layer of skin on your skull and having just the hair and the skin.
And yeah.
Very, very close buzz cut.
So he was killed. Like you read in American Indians, movie or mountain, this
Yeah.
And life and death becomes so. It becomes just a normal thing. And even for me, going out of the wire, or even waking up in the morning, was okay. I don't know if I'm going to be alive later today or not. Going out into Villa Somalia, for example, where all the government ministries were, and sometimes we'd be stuck. So say in some of my missions, I'd have like 8. Somali protection in front, 8 all sitting on the back of a Hilux, are fully armed, and I'm in bulletproof cars and so on. And then we'd be stuck outside Villa Somalia, which is the most vulnerable point in Mogadishu, and we're stuck there for 20 minutes. And then we are trained to notice everything and everybody. If somebody's on the phone for too long, you have to kind of indicate that somebody's on the phone for too long. Or if you're going to the same venue a number of times, if there's a certain pattern and you see the same set of people, so we're all there, we're all part of the team, watching what's happening, looking out for snipers, looking out for, looking out for, is there a pattern, right?
Yeah.
But that was one of the most chilling moments, where you're just stuck like a sitting duck, and you just have 16 Somali protection, and the cars, they're blocking the cars, but we were sitting ducks.
Yeah. Foreign national protection is one of the scariest things to work with, just because you don't know who they actually work for. So we had a lot of foreign national security services outside of our FOB, outside of our base, and about a quarter of them I wouldn't turn my back to, ever. Hypervigilance is a state that you get so used to, it's very difficult to turn off. And it takes many years of therapy or working in a non-combatant environment to be able to turn it off and just be like, I am okay, I am safe. And a lot of guys never get to. And it took me a very long time to kind of cool that down, at least a little bit. But now I'm at a state of like healthy paranoia where, yeah.
You hear the car bang go off.
Yeah, and it's like,
Same thing I want to ask, like at the starting it must be very hard. Like maybe after years it will be easy. Maybe तपाईहरुलाई चाहिँ like बानी पर्यो अब बच्ने थाहा छैन हैन तर at starting days how you guys managed yourself?
I mean, I grew up in a situation where Gorkhaland bhara थियो नि दार्जिलिङमा हैन त्यहाँ like, so there was a movement in Darjeeling where I was studying and so on, so I'd already seen and actually been since then like a target, I guess, so I was already familiar. That was kind of like my normal operating zone, whereas this was my abnormal this is not my comfort zone, whereas those conflict sort of areas became my comfort zone, my everyday life. So for me, that was not a problem. I mean, the things that stick to me is, of course, I mean, there are obviously lots of things that you see and hear and so on that stick with you. But I remember remember those tactical C-130 flights?
Oh, yeah.
Takeoffs and landings.
The long ones you talk about? Yeah.
Go ahead.
So C-130s are these airplanes that were built back in like the 70s, right? Like a majority of them, 70s, 80s, right? And a majority of them are still in use, and they are that old, and the people maintaining them are, again, teenagers. So they are not like the most comfortable flights. And especially if you're coming in hot or you're coming off of an area that's a little more dangerous, it's a very quick fly off time to very quick landing, which means that you're feeling every little bit of that vibration going up and it feels like you're about to explode like halfway off the ground. And then when you land, it feels like you're about to just go directly into the ground. But a majority of my flights did not involve me landing in said plane.
No,
Yeah.
no, we had to turn off all the lights, and then we just went,
Mm-hmm.
and then we did the corkscrew takeoff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh,
If you need a very small area to take off, so these are huge planes, right? So with normal airplanes, you have like a huge runway that allows you like take off, go up, keep going straight. For C-130s, they have the ability to take off in a very short, for their size, airfield, and to be able to get at the altitude of cruising instead of going straight, because then you'll just get hit by rockets. You have to go directly above wherever you just took off, and it is just the most
you go in
nauseating.
circles,
And you feel it. You feel yourself going spinning just constantly, and people will just be throwing up right next to you. I had a guy throw up on my lap. Like it's disgusting. I hated every second of it.
And by the way, because we've been in these situations, that's why we have no problem in doing our business wherever we do, because if you gotta go, you gotta go.
Yeah,
right?
it just is what it is.
And I still have a few some of the other things that still stick with me, and I still have, is we as women, when we're trained, and then I was a lot of the time working as an independent consultant. So I'd have to, most of the time, insurance would be provided by whoever was hiring me, but sometimes I had to get my own insurance. So I kind of became like the poster child of kidnap and ransom insurance. And before we go on mission, we're trained, especially as women, that if you get kidnapped, you are going to get raped, right?
Yeah.
And we have to go through all these different simulations of you being beaten up, being hooded, being raped, well, not literally, but, and how do you respond? So I don't think enough is done in terms of safety for women, in terms of training or pre-training for civilians. But I think over the years, things changed. But when I initially started, it was mostly a male kind of dominated area, and suddenly there were women like me in the field, and they hadn't thought it through. So, but that part, you will get raped if you get kidnapped. Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And military side, we don't train like that. We don't tell our female soldiers this, even though there are some, very few, but some in combat roles. That's not a training that we provide. So even though she went through that training, how many years ago? Like 30?
No. We have to
reoccurrence. For us, you have SEER, which is something that I went through, but most soldiers don't.
SEER?
SEER, yeah. Survive, evade, rescue, and escape. So that they do what she's talking about. They put you through hell. They put you in a very tiny box, spray you with water, keep you sleep deprived, play loud music. Your whole goal is to either get out of that situation or not tell them anything. For us, our main goal is to escape. Every chance we get out. Every chance you get, push back. Every chance you get out of there. Be compliant enough to where it seems like you're playing along, but then get out as quickly as possible. And for female soldiers, they don't even touch it, to be quite honest. It's not something that's heavily put on, but it's very, very real. Like this kind of danger, this kind of violence is high, especially because in these countries, like, men will fuck goats, dude. Like they'll get off wherever they possibly can. They have concubines that are small boys that just follow them around. And that's their whole purpose as that child, which is insane.
And it's still practiced.
Oh, it's still very much practiced in Afghanistan, especially in Iraq, Iran, in the more rural areas. Like you'll see it everywhere. And for us, because we have to follow certain rules, we can't respond to that. Like we're not allowed to handle that kind of situation, especially because if we say like kill that guy, rescue that kid, right? now we have to deal with their whole family. And the whole family is well connected to Taliban or to ISIS. And then word spreads about who did what. And then now we're even more targets than we already were. But that kind of violence is just so wildly common in war zones that most people just kind of think of it as an inclusion. It's hard.
I think three of the most chilling experiences I've had, because I used to go into prisons and so on, right? And then going into Iraqi prisons and so on, Afghani prisons and so on. It was, especially the women's prisons and so on. That was really tough. That was really tough. And those are memories that are seared in your head. And I remember in the Rusafa prison, there were pre-trial people. There was like a desert full of tents of like over to like, I don't know, 10, 20,000 people who hadn't been on trial for 5 years, and they were just in the wrong place in the wrong time when a bomb went off, and they just collected all the people, and to try and see if they were innocent or guilty, and they hadn't even been to trial for 5 years. That was, and then going into the prison and people just begging for help and saying, get me out. Look, here's my release papers, but the prison guards wouldn't let them out because on release they would be given $100 and a new set of clothes or whatever, and they were scared to get out of prison because as soon as they got out of prison, the $100 would be taken away, and the new clothes would be taken away. But I think the worst one was working with the Yazidi community. Do you remember in 2015, 2016 in northern Iraq when ISIS went in and committed genocide again on a specific ethnic group called the Yazidi people, and there are still 6,500 plus still missing. And ISIS just went in and totally bombed that whole area, Sinjar and so on, northern Iraq, Mosul. It was like totally bombed out, and then they kidnapped men, women, children, and took them into Syria and other places and kept them as sex slaves and so on. And Nadia Murad, I think she was also kidnapped, and then she managed to get out, and she got a Nobel Peace Prize for telling the world about what was happening. And in one of the years, sometime after COVID or during COVID, I was working with female and male combatants who fought against ISIS with special forces to fight back ISIS, and to sit and talk about their experiences was just chilling. And so now you know why I work out so hard at the gym, dude.
That's why Imadi first asked me for the training and then left me, dissed me next day. See you at 10. She never came. Anyways, like, I'll ask one more question, okay? You were as a health something doctor when you went to the army.
Yeah. So.
Have you ever been in a war?
Yes.
Like proper with the guns?
Yes.
But you were only doctor, no?
No. So one thing that's really important to realize about the U.S. military is every man is a rifleman. Every single one of us. So yes, there are some people who have office jobs. There's some people who have medical jobs, but first and foremost, you are going to hold a gun. You are going to hold a rifle. And if we go out beyond the safe zones, the green zones, we look like everyone else. There's no differentiating me from an infantryman other than maybe the size of my pack, and it's going to look a little different, but it's going to be hard to tell from a distance. We noticed in the early days of the Iraqi war when medics and docs would go beyond the wire with just a pistol, because that was how it used to be, they would just get shot because it became very obvious that they were medical personnel. And if you take out the medical personnel, then the rest, exactly, everybody, that's a harder person to replace than an infantryman. An infantryman, you can give a rifle to an 18-year-old kid, put him in training for a couple months, and he'll come out a killer, and a good one at that. These gun bunnies know exactly what the hell they're doing. So I was trained as a designated marksman, So I was with a scout group, and our whole job was to go in small teams and locate things for artillery. That was a big portion of my job, is just to locate everything, give coordinates back to our head of command, and then come back. And I was to make sure that none of my guys died. So yes, I've been in war zones a lot. And
Do you think you work out a lot too?
no. That I mean, like in comparison to what I did back in the military, I mean, I work out a hell of a lot more now in a very different way. What I went through when I was in, we still had what's called the Army Fitness Test, the APFT, Army Physical Fitness Test, and it was mostly focused on endurance. It wasn't focused on what we actually did in combat. So that's changed. And a lot of people have actually been kicked out of the military because they can't meet those standards. But from back when I was doing it, was like a 2-mile run. You had to do in under 16 minutes, preferably around 13 minutes. You had to do like 50 push-ups and 60 sit-ups, and that was it. That was the physical test. And that doesn't equate to anything in combat. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. Because there's a big difference between litter carrying someone. And a litter is what's on my arm here, which is this kind of cot that you carry sick patients on, and carrying that for 2 miles than it is for me to run 2 miles. You know, like the pace is going to be different. I'm going to have to switch hands a lot. How you work as a team, the terrain. So how I work out now is a lot more purposeful to honestly what I should have been doing back then. And I also work in places that are not exactly safe. Like I worked in Kashmir, and there are some really good people that I linked up with, and I know how to do the hearts and minds stuff. You know, like I know how to talk to people, and I know how to make friends with people who are not friendly, right? And I know how to communicate. So I've relied mostly on the fact that I know how to make connections to keep myself safe, because I can't carry a gun here. I can't have my armor wearing everywhere, right? So I've had to rely on my ability to connect with people to make sure that, okay, I'm going into a place that has like high amount of terrorism, has a pretty high amount of kidnappings. People get killed just because of their last name and their association with Hinduism or their association with Islam. Right? So I've had to really figure that out and then build my fitness around, okay, I'm not going to have a gun. How do I need to look? How do I need to be able to go from place to place? And how do I need to be able to survive? And a big portion of that is that heavy endurance. So like rucking, running short distances, but running those short distances very fast from cover to cover. Having the ability to lift someone that's my body weight or heavier, and to get them either out of trouble or to get them the hell off of me. So everything in my fitness has changed more into a purposeful mindset, especially now that I'm 30 and not 20, you know?
30?
Yeah.
Oh,
I know. Still a baby. Still a baby.
We are just burning now.
Yeah. But
Rimadi, have you killed anybody?
No, well,
Like,
I've wanted to. No,
not like
no,
that, but like
no,
when you
no,
were like
no.
for self-defense
No, not
or
any.
had to use guns.
No, but I've had to extract myself out of a situation when you just rely. Number one rule is you follow orders. You do not of your protection. And then if you feel if you have this gut feeling that something's going to go wrong, you just go, I'm pulling out of here. Take me out of here. Let's get out. And so yes, I have had a gun, but I've never used it. But based on how we are trained and being in the field for so long, you just have a sense of where things could go horribly wrong, and you just stop, drop everything, and extract yourself out of that situation. So yeah.
The safest option is always to run to cover and get the hell out.
Yeah.
Like that's what everyone is trained. And sometimes that's not the option, but that's always the safest, is to get away from the gunfire. Simple as that. Just get away from it.
How do you train the tubela? You guys both.
You
Well,
go for it.
I mean, I started trekking from a very early age, and so I've kind of always, well, I was a chubby bubby at some point, but but then once I got into this line of work, it's as part of your mental health and as part of your focus and so on. Training is and keep being fit is really, really important. So, say for example, when I was the country director for a UN organization in Somalia, it was like, I don't care if the prime minister calls or whoever calls, this is my time that I train, and I'm going to go for that run on the beach in the international zone. And I mean, the beach sounds very fancy, but it's not a fancy beach, and there's lots of soldiers running up and down, and there's bunkers and so on. And in the international zone, some of the more senior people have close protection running with them, and so on. But exercise is an absolute must in these sorts of situations, and not only for ourselves. I've been one of the organizations I worked with was using sport for low-level. How do you say low-level
Like
defectors?
Yes.
Defectors.
Yeah.
They were using sport for low-level defectors from terrorist groups to and providing psychosocial support and so on, using sport as a way of de-radicalizing them and normalizing them and making them part of
Yeah,
them.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
यहाँ पनि, अहिले पनि.
Yeah.
Even when Durga Prasad was about to go for the protest, someone was about to lead a utaतिर के for a football thing to just not make them focused in that thing and focused in this.
And you have to realize about like radicalization, a big part of it is isolation. So
Working together.
yeah, and they bring these young kids, specifically young men, into these organizations, ISIS, Taliban, that are usually not good with their parents, don't have a whole lot of connecting family, and if they do, then things are a little bit tense. And they'll bring them into the organization and they'll radicalize them through that isolation. So they won't have a whole lot of contact with the outside world, they won't have a lot of contact with people outside of the organization itself. And so when that baseline of everyone hates is up here and you start off right here, to meet that societal standard that is set before you, which is this, slowly you get up here. And it's very, very difficult to bring it back down. And sports is a great way of doing it because it allows a lot of interaction between a bunch of different people who have nothing in common. Like if you and I go play football, we have that ability to communicate about football. And then we might develop a friendship outside of that and you get to know me more. And that's a big portion of de-radicalization, is getting something that's comfortable, easy, competitive, that does not isolate. And the sports program that like the civilian side did was amazing.
So I mean, in Somalia, where a lot of the country is still controlled by Al-Shabaab, the terrorist group, they kidnap or they take. A family is expected to give a son or a daughter or whatever. And I remember in Iraq, they were also, remember there was a time they were strapping on bombs on
kids.
Oh,
yeah. Very common.
The level of cruelty that humans, that have the capacity for, is still astounds me, and for me, I mean, one of the things that I am very proud of is I know I'm a person of integrity. I might piss people off, but I am a person of integrity and great compassion, and I think you see that. Right? At the gym. Come on. I just came back from Malaysia and brought everybody packets of durian.
You're so nice. You're much nicer than I am. I mean, even if you look at it closer to home too, like if we look at the Maoist regime the Civil War that happened here, they went to schools. Yeah. They kidnapped young men and put them in the ranks. Like we still have guys that are only like 10 years older, 15 years older than us that went through that are still alive, that are still dealing with the fact that when they were like 10, they were handed a gun and told to go to war.
And that's something, what I'm really, really, I mean, a lot more needs to be done. What I'm seeing more of is people are talking more about mental health, right?
Yeah.
Are starting to talk about more about mental health and the importance of it, and linking again exercise, diet, lifestyle changes, and not being ashamed to go and
Go talk to somebody.
go and talk to someone.
Yeah.
And I would only encourage. I mean, we are kind of extreme cases, but I would encourage everybody, particularly in our society and so on, people who went through the war or even have not been through the war. Mental health is something that is so important. It's almost more important than your physical health in a sense. And go talk to someone, go reach out, don't be ashamed. And I mean, one of the things that really shocked me in Karnali was when I was working with, hanging out with a lot of doctors at the provincial hospital, and there were like 10 cases a day of attempted suicide or suicide, in Surkhet and the surrounding regions itself. And that's something that's really, that shocked me. That shocked me more than other things that, we have a different kind of war here, and that's a whole another conversation to have. But linking mental health with that physical exercise, for me itself, from my own perspective, is really, really important. So that's why I spend 3 to 4 hours at the gym sometimes.
That's the only reason you control your mental health?
Yeah.
Only?
Huh?
For both of you?
I mean, for me,
anything extra you do for your mental health?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For me, when I first got out, I went to a therapist. It took a couple of years, but I ended up talking to, I went through a bunch trying to find the right one. And I eventually found a guy who I really loved talking to. But I had to really break down why I was feeling what I was feeling and figuring out like how to fit back into society. Because I could put on a mask, absolutely, and go like be at my work and at my job for like 2-3 hours at a time, but then slowly that comes off and I become a lot more agitated, a lot more aggressive, a lot more kind of who I used to be when I was in the military, which was not a very friendly guy. I was not, because I couldn't be. I could be friendly to my guys, but the outside needed to be professional, and I need to keep it that way. And professionalism, a lot of times in the work that I used to do, does not mean joking around, doesn't mean being friendly. It means being brash and very, very, very straightforward. And that does not go well with most civilians. And even in this society, like when I'm very straightforward with people, they do not like it. It can be a little bit much, and I know that. So that coupled with then figuring out the exercise routine, figuring out my diet, learning what my social battery is, and then being, when I get close, being like, hey, I loved hanging out with you guys. I gotta bounce.
Yeah.
And then getting that me time or the time with the wife that I really need, because she's like one of the few people that I can be around comfortably at my base level. And she gets it. I mean, she doesn't fully understand, but she does everything that she can and is there for me either way. And that's all I look for.
I still go and talk to people. I mean, like I go and speak to a therapist because it's a lot. Particularly because I was working in the legal and judicial side of things, where I mean, there's a war part, but then we are dealing with the very human issues, which is really tough. So I was going to say, for example, in Afghanistan, there were young women in women's prisons, and they had been married to 70, forced married to, there were 16-year-olds who were married to 70-year-olds, 16 married to 70-year-old men, and they had tried to run away, and they had committed the crime of zina.
Yeah.
And so they were caught, and then they were in prison. And then what? after they get out, right? Some had acid thrown all over them, and it was just so there's a lot. Once you get out of that, you realize how much is still in your body, right? Is how much is still in your body, and so it's a lot to process. So without any shame, and I'm proud to say that I go and see a really good trauma specialist, and that helps a lot to talk about things because in the field we don't talk about it a lot. It's just like everybody's going through the same shit, right? So
it's just your work. It's your
the
job.
work, yeah. And then you realize after you come out that there's a lot to process, right? And then there's some of our friends, a lot of them, take to drugs. Not me. I used to drink a lot as part. Now I don't drink, but as part of that whole lifestyle as a civvy. I mean, military didn't drink. You go out, you come back, and you blow off steam. And what do? You drink, right? Everybody drinks. Everybody that can't drink. So it becomes a way of life. And then suddenly, when I came to Nepal, you go, oh, I'm not there. I don't have to. So I've been working on.
I drink very rarely. Very rarely. But I love my nicotine, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I mean, so those are sort of real struggles that we have, and you just break it down, and actually you reach out to people who understand, who get it, who don't judge you, and go, hey, I'm here right now. I'm having a bad day. Let's talk about it, or shall we go for a walk? I often go bush. I go hiking, and when I was in Somalia, if I was having a bad time, I'd go, oh, I'm going to climb Mount Kenya, or I'll go climb Mount Kilimanjaro, or over here, I'd often come back here trekking, but that's something that that's my comfort zone. I've always been doing that since I was quite young. So yeah, nature is healing. Nature, I love being out in the woods, and then of course I love the gym, and especially this gym, the farm, because it's a real community. It's a very supportive community, and you guys are all part of it. And I want to ask you, what did you guys first think when I walked in, and you saw me work out?
Money.
Kidding.
No. Just kidding. You said me you are here for a week, and then you're traveling, if you don't remember. And then you just wanted a PT for a week, and then you'll think about it, come after a month or whenever you come. Yeah. But you dissed me the next day. You didn't even give me time to think about it.
No, dude.
You weren't a very good trainer. I'm sorry. Like the moment she met you, she sized you up and was like,
I didn't know the system, dude. So
she was like, okay, let's meet tomorrow then for a training. Let's start from tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, what time? 9. Okay, let's go. 9 or 10 somewhere. And she was like, okay. And she was like training with someone else. And I'm like, bro, what?
So there is a huge difference in like gyms in the States or like Western countries. You sign up for a program, you don't sign up for an individual. So I'm assuming you were just like, oh yeah, I'll get a training program, and then it's just whoever I meet that's going to be my trainer for the day.
So I walked in and I go, okay, fine, yeah.
No, but yeah, maybe you didn't know that.
Yeah. No, but I really enjoy working out, and I'm because we where we are, of course, in the camps and so on, we have good gyms, but good enough gyms.
You had a good gym. We did not. Everything was made out of concrete and then like plyboard.
Right.
That's like 90. So
CrossFit type.
No, not even for us. Like it wasn't until like at the very end when I was starting to head back that we got the container with like the multi CrossFit thing. Yeah. For us, it was literally, we found big ass rocks, concrete, and a steel bar, and we made specific like weights that we could generally guess, and then we'd use that. It was the most ghetto shit ever known to man.
Oh my goodness, but it's so trendy now.
It's awful. It's awful. No. But I was also at like Fort Arion for a majority of it, so I wasn't even on the main fob. We were just kind of like surrounded by sandbags 90% of the time. Oh God.
I was asking like how you feel now when you're like free, like from that thing, mental health or physical health, clear, all the freeness and the
Yeah, you know what? I think what all of that has taught me is life is too short. Don't put up with shit, particularly bullshit. if you know if a certain situation is really affecting your mental health, just be selfish and say, I'm looking after me, and walk away from it. Yeah, it's not worth it. It's not worth worth going through that process again. And you just say, and 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 it's very empowering. It's liberating to be able to do that. And I'm really now at a point in my life where I will say, I will work with you because I trust you. I know, we can work together, but it's going to be based on, and I will choose my assignments because I've just had too many bad situations where, you just go.
Bad leadership, people not caring about your specific life. They only care about the mission, or they're not looking at logistics properly. Like
they just worried about spending the donors' money. They're not actually there to make an impact or look after the people. And specifically this is Nepal, this is where I come from. And when that sort of stuff happens, that's when you get like, okay.
That happens a lot here.
Yeah.
That happens a lot here. People, they don't want to make an impact. They just want to do something. And so like with USAID, what we saw was a huge influx of cash, right? Lots of money. But it was mostly going towards salaries. It was going towards projects that would never happen, or go towards logistical analysts, people that would plan the project, but then
here,
Yeah.
of course.
And it would just go into people's pockets. And that's one of the reasons why you and I connect so hard is I don't work with big organizations. I refuse to. I see the corruption there. I see what ends up happening, and it's not community based.
Why do you think the protests happen, man?
Exactly. And I quit after the protests. I said, I cannot wake up and look at myself in the mirror and say I'm doing good, right? So I just said I quit.
So you're not working?
I am doing what I choose to do.
Independent contracting is the appropriate term.
I choose to work with who I want to work with, and who are there to make an impact, rather than just do it for the sake of doing it.
Yeah. For something like happened for the first time in Nepal protest, and that killed, like, which we know for Gen Z, they're killing the babies. You guys were seeing that every day.
Yes.
Yeah.
So most of the Nepali doesn't even know what you have gone through. That's why we called you guys, and thank you so much for that. But I honestly want to thank you for Fred and you when we were in the group and you were chatting a lot. That time
we
were just going back and forth nonstop.
You're like nonstop, and I'm like reading. Oh wow, okay. This is, and sharing photos.
Yeah.
Like photos, not videos. Yeah.
No, about the field experiences. Suddenly it was like, oh my God, this guy
someone
gets
else
it.
knows. Yeah. I don't meet many people that get it, and most of my friends who I served with, like a majority of them are dead now, and there's like 3 or 4 that are around still, and I keep in good contact with them, and they're really solid guys. But face-to-face interaction, people that I get to be like, yeah, you get the mission that I'm on, you get the mission that I have done, and you also understand the transfer period between the two.
Yeah.
And that's rare, because a lot of guys, when they get out, they go into self-destructive behaviors, like a majority of them do, because there's no transition period between when you are supposed to be hard, you were supposed to be fucking killer, you're supposed to be that dude, to now civilian life, where none of that applies. None of it. And so they don't know how to integrate. They don't seek mental health because that's not encouraged in the military at all. And it's actually discouraged because then that means you're broken. That means there's something wrong with you, right? And they just turn to alcohol. The majority of them turn to self-destructive behaviors like going to see strippers all the time and gambling away their money or not building meaningful relationships and isolating themselves. And I mean, suicide is extremely prevalent within my community. It's 44 a day. 44 people a day kill themselves that are veterans. That number is incredibly high. And honestly, I was almost one of those people because I really struggled with not knowing how to interact with people after I got out. And I didn't have any meaningful relationships. My relationship with my ex was very toxic because that's the relationship that I thought I deserved. And that's the relationship that made sense to me. And that isolated me a lot. And I went down a really, really dark spiral of like extreme paranoia and hatefulness towards myself and not knowing how to like handle that. And I was almost part of that statistic. Luckily, I got through it and I was able to do something more meaningful, and that helped me realize like my worth. But a lot of guys don't get that opportunity. And so a majority of the guys I served with are no longer with us. But
How is your relationship? How was your relationship? And what made, if you can say,
My relationship?
which one? It's so realistic for anyone who's been asked. Oh my God.
Oh, well, I had a dog. I had a very good.
So let me preface your statement with, along with suicide rates, divorce rates
are very high.
Very high. 90% of marriages within the military end up in divorce. And of that 10% that don't, there is at least like 8% that have experienced infidelity. That rate is incredibly high for military. And DoD civilian wise, I mean, you're in the field all the time. You're experiencing shit that no one else gets all the time. And then when you come home to someone who does not understand it,
yeah,
you can't connect again, and it's really difficult.
I mean, I was married to a Danish Air Force officer, but I was more in the field than he was.
Yeah, I mean, that's Air Force, though.
Because he was Air Force.
Yeah. There's a reason why we call them Chair Force. They don't go off base.
And I mean, here's the thing. I mean, at first, I thought we got each other because the military are supposed to be trained, and their families, especially in about coming back home, and the families are supposed to be, talked through about this person's being in a high stress environment. Let them be, and give them space and so on. But I had quite the opposite. So I had a beautiful relationship with my dog. I used to Skype and FaceTime my dog called Rambo, and before that I had a dog. Well, we had a dog called Geisha. I had beautiful relationships with dogs.
Last question. I'll just want to know, like, one of you mentioned in the group that maybe you shared a photo with the blood. I'll cut this. I don't know how to make a question, but I'm just saying, like, seeing your own friend dying in front of you, appropriate to speak or no?
I mean, it's a little difficult to talk about, but I can. That's something I can talk about a little bit.
Yeah.
You go ahead. You first.
There's a part of me that's just become so numb. It becomes, okay, this is part of life. And you go, okay, there's no kind of, I don't know, Dalai Lama-ish. It's sort of like, no, you let go. No, a sense of attachment. It's sort of like, okay, it's gone.
So you didn't cry at all?
It's probably a grieving period for...
Yeah, it happens in stages. It hits you later. But
not at the moment.
No, I mean, I've had colleagues who've been killed and so on. But it's just you cry for a bit and then you go, okay, they're gone. And yeah, it comes in waves. I think, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
It's similar to my experience. For us, it's a little different because I work very closely with these guys. They become your family, right? At a certain point, it's a lot of anger. And that's like the main feeling because it's much easier to feel than grief, especially in the moment. But my job becomes to make sure they don't. And that's when I really struggled for a long time with I failed.
You have a different,
I failed to protect someone that I love. And that hits you in a very different way, and that ends up becoming kind of like it's something that ingrained inside you for a very long time, and it's difficult to get past. And I've been very fortunate to have a great therapist and enough training to where I understand my faults in that moment, and I also understand that there literally was nothing that I could have done.
Yeah.
It's at a certain point, it's just you have to accept what it is. And that then makes me a better physician later on. That then pushes me to be like, okay, I did not properly respond. And so now it's time for me to get better to know that this never happens again. And even in situations where I know there was literally nothing I could have done, not a single thing. So future reference me now understands that. Back then, it was just hate. It was a lot of hate. And it wasn't directed at people that was appropriate to direct it at for a long time. And so I really, really struggled with foreign nationals after that incident. And I was not the kindest person for a very long time. And it takes a realization of this was an individual, this was not a people group. And for a lot of guys, they never get to that realization. And it becomes, this is a people group. There's nothing I can do to change this people group. And so they are a scourge. And that's where you see like a lot of the racism from the military. That's why you see a lot of Islamophobia from the military as well. Because a lot of them, to be quite honest, it's justified to a certain extent. It's
because
very,
they were targets in some.
Yeah, you were targets, and you were targets from people who hate you. They hate you because you are trying to stop them from doing what they believe is correct, right? And these extremist groups, they believe that these horrific things that we view as horrific things are a part of what they need to do. And it is very difficult to take a step back and be like, these are people who have gone through horrific things that are isolated from any other knowledge in the world. And this is what they truly, truly believe. And it goes from, at least my experience, from hate to let me change the fact that you're not isolated. Because I personally believe people can change. I've changed. But it took a lot to go from that. Yeah. Don't cry. Stop it.
No, the thing is, like, I can imagine what you guys are saying. Like, in the sense of, like, not the same moment, but obviously a little bit imagination. My friend is dying and I'm not able to help him. Like, you feel the worst at the time.
Yeah.
Or, like, even though you're seeing the same person every day, becomes a little bit familiar. Even though you talk or no.
Oh, it's very family. Like, it's not even a little bit. Like, these guys... These guys have seen me in my very worst. They've seen me in my very best. They know, like, I did not have a good family situation at all growing up. These guys knew what that was. I talked to them about everything. It's not even like your best friend. This is a dude who you might fucking hate, like actually hate. Like, he's a horrible human being, but you know for 100% fact that he would jump in front of a bullet for you, and you would do the exact same. Like, that dude might suck, but he's your brother, and that's the end of it.
True. That's it for today, guys. We'll see you one more time, maybe. But I don't know how many people will watch this because this is the first time we're doing something podcast. But I really wanted to know and listen to you guys. So
Yeah, we're here for it.
good for me. I don't care about who will watch only. No, I'm just kidding. But maybe people will like it. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for being a part of Camp, guys.
So much for sharing the things.
Yeah.
That's it.
Anything you want to share to youth, those who haven't even seen or heard this kind of things ever in their life?
Don't fall for the Ukrainian or Russian military trying to recruit you with better numbers. Do not fall for that. That is a very big thing here. There are still young men that are trapped in that war zone that are trying to get out, and they are still there. That is one of the most horrific conflicts I've seen in a long time. Do not fall for that. Yeah, war is not a game. It's not fun. It's not something that you can just walk away from. That stays with you for the rest of your life.
So that's a really important message. And then the having rescued like a couple of girls this year within a week, somebody asked me for help, and I rescued 2 from Iraq. And that was because I had the contacts, because I'd worked in Iraq and I knew the system, and I pushed the system here and in Iraq. For so many young people are leaving to go overseas with the idea that there's a better life out there. And it could be that for some people, but for most people, it is, you do not take out a loan. Life, it's not as rosy as it seems out there. It's tough, dude. It's really, really tough. And
Dubai is a scary place.
Forget Dubai.
Well, just even the high point of where you could go for a lot of people. Dubai has a tremendous amount of trafficking.
Exactly.
It's slavery.
It's the hub, and it's slavery.
Someone just told me, like, if you, I don't know who, yesterday, Iceman, if you hit and run for the Nepali people, you don't have to pay anything. In Dubai.
Oh, yeah. No,
for other country, they have to pay.
But it's really interesting. In some of the places that I've been to, there's a hierarchy. So amongst the trafficked people. So actually the Nepalis are kind of on top of the hierarchy. Then I think like the Bangladeshis come at the bottom.
And then Sub-Saharan is even lower.
Yeah. There's the Indians, and then there's the Pakistanis, and so Nepalis are generally known to be the guards, the Gurkhas. So say, for example, I was just in Malaysia, in Penang, staying in a hotel and so on, and there were 2 Nepalis, and they're going like, "You're staying here for 8 days?" And like, and they were, the guards, we don't normally see,
Many Nepalis that are not trafficked in that area.
Yeah. So for the young people, I really, really, it's especially women, be very careful. And as I said, I've seen Van being involved in 2 cases already this year, and then of the 12 Nepali men before. And you just, when I go to the airport, actually, that's where I cry. That's where my heart cries, is when I go to the airport and I just see
a lot of people leaving the country.
Yeah.
Well, outside of that, get over the shame culture that's here and go find a therapist. If you're struggling with something, like, I understand that it's deeply rooted within this culture, that shame. Get past it. Go talk to someone. It's not hard, and you'll end up, if you find the right person, you'll end up feeling a load off of your chest. It's just finding the right person.
Thank you. Thank you so much, guys.
The heaviest episode so far. Let's go.
The first time we didn't laugh on this cam, guys, is this stuff. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys liked the episode. And we'll shoot another 2, something important like this. Thank you. Keep watching us, and good night.
Good night, folks.
Good night.